Welcome to another episode of the Midlife Mavericks podcast. Today, I'm joined by Ben Ashmole, a man whose journey is nothing short of extraordinary. From serving as a police officer to surviving a life-altering incident where he was shot in the head, Ben has faced challenges that would break many. But instead of letting adversity define him, Ben used these experiences to reshape his life and align it with his true values. In this episode, Ben opens up about the courage it took to leave his law enforcement career, particularly during the COVID-19 pandemic, when his personal beliefs and professional responsibilities clashed. Now, living on a sustainable hobby farm, Ben has embraced a new lifestyle as a health advocate and coach, focusing on fitness, nutrition, and mental resilience. His story is a powerful reminder that growth isn't linear. It's a rollercoaster of triumphs, setbacks, and lessons learned. Ben dives deep into the importance of personal responsibility for health, addressing everyday struggles, and the transformative power of living in alignment with your values. Get ready for a conversation filled with inspiration and actionable insights that will leave you motivated to take charge of your own health and well-being. Let's dive in.
Thanks, Rich. Been a while since seeing you.
Mate, it's been a long time. As I was just saying off air, the other day I was scrolling social media, .health, and I just started reading through some of your posts, and it reminded me of back in 2019, I believe it was, us being at ice bars in Melbourne, doing a bit of Wim Hof breathing in ice bars with mutual friends, hearing your incredible story that I hope we can sort of share today. And it just reminded me of like your courage, your bravery, your determination. And it made me think that it would be great to catch up with you and have a conversation, but to share that conversation with men in midlife. So thanks for joining the podcast, mate. And I can't wait to sort of go through this story. But before we dive into it, can you tell us a little bit about your life right now? Where are you in the world? What's happening for you?
So I think it's been about 2 years. Me and my partner, Nikki, we moved to about 64 acres in Yarrahapinni, which is about an hour north of Port Macquarie, about an hour south of Coffs Harbour. So right along the coast in the middle of nowhere, really. We've set up a mostly off-grid cabin, off-grid gym, hobby farm. Yeah, we've kind of the last 2 years been working hard at setting up a complete lifestyle change and learning new skills and basically turned our lives completely around, like from 180 degrees. A lot of changes and big time for reflection and like relationship confrontations and things like that as everything kind of unfolds. So yeah, it's been a big couple of years.
Incredible, mate. I've seen the images, like the picture of your gym, the shipping crate gym, and the picture of the goats running around and a little hobby farm you've got going up there. It looks magical, mate.
Yeah, it's awesome. We got 10 goats, 12 chickens, 6 plus 6 silky chickens, 2 miniature Highland cows. We're getting 4 liters of goat's milk every day, about 8 eggs every day. So it's not completely self-sustainable, but we're definitely on the path towards it. So
yeah, beautiful, mate, beautiful. And how's the gym business going?
Yeah, good. We kind of offer fairly niche modalities, I guess, which took the small coastal towns a little while to appreciate. We're doing like strongman training, powerlifting kind of concepts. Nikki's right into gymnastic strength and hand balancing and all the Edo approaches to movement and things like that. So yeah, it was kind of slow going. We had to kind of offer some boot camp and generalized kind of exercise classes to then start swaying people across into some actual training.
Yeah, exactly, mate. It takes a while to imprint yourself, especially in a new community like that, mate. But it's glad to hear that's going well for you. Can you maybe walk us through like what's life like for you? Like what's a typical day for you right now, Ben?
At the moment, we're up at 6, milk the goats. We got 3 does that we're milking, which gives us our 4 liters. Feed the goats, feed the chickens, cart 50 liters of water across from the dam for the goats for the day. And then if we've got one-on-one PTs, or if we've got a class which we run a couple of times a week, otherwise we're working out of a gym in a town called Nambuck Heads, or the gym's called Connective Fitness. The people that run it are mostly into CrossFit and high rocks and all that, but good people and their hearts are in the right place. Really, it developed a real community atmosphere. We run some classes down there a couple of days a week for them, and we're setting up a space for strongman in their gym as well. So Monday, Tuesday, we're down there. Otherwise, we run a couple of classes here from the shipping container. So that's a lot easier for us. And otherwise, we do some bunch of online work, being so far away from the rest of the world. We're doing some online programming, online health coaching, so blood chemistry analysis, stool testing, all that kind of stuff. So that keeps us busy when we've got reception or when we've got access to, and Nikki's right into lymphatic treatments as well. So we get some clients come through for some of those treatments. So we kind of had to, I guess, diversify with what we're offering just because of the limited population in the area. But it's been awesome. It's been really challenging and having to confront a lot of those limitations in ourselves and all that kind of thing. So yeah, just offering what we're right into, but then being able to meet the community where they're at, what their expectations are and how they want to train, or how they kind of see it for themselves. So
wicked, mate.
Yeah.
Sounds like a pretty good lifestyle you've got up there for yourself, mate. You've got the connection of the gym when you want to get down there and do that, but you've got your own little private space with the hobby farm, and you're making good connections in the community and sharing, what you're passionate about with both you and your partner, Nikki, which is epic, mate. Now, I know it hasn't always been like this. If we rewind back a few years, where do you want to start? Where do we go back to, man?
I guess for me, the health journey, like a personal health journey, I guess would be fairly significant, or we could even kind of go back a little further. I was a personal trainer before joining the police force. Joined Victoria Police in 2013, which was kind of one of the most significant situations that arose from working as a police officer was getting shot in the head. So that was, I guess, pivotal in my own personal health journey, in how I kind of approach what I value and what's important to me, and how to assess my decisions and what life I kind of wanted to build, which I think in a lot of ways I was building that working as a police officer, living in a city. There was definitely a big aspects that did align with my values. And
Ben, can I ask there, like when you changed careers from the personal training to becoming a police officer, like what led you down that path? What inspired you to take on that role?
Yeah, I mean, I was in the Army Reserve prior to joining the police force, so I was working as a personal trainer, and also operating with the Army Reserve, and a lot of those blokes within the reserves were police, and I was also in a running group. The bloke that run that group was in the critical incident response team. So while we're running, doing our 10 kilometers or so, he was going through his day or some of the jobs that he attended, or some of his war stories that he had were, I guess, in, mid-20s. It was all pretty exciting, and it felt like the antidote to my experience of, the repetition that I was that I'd felt that my life had become, that the there was still some interest, but not a lot of passion in it. And the excitement, I guess, sounded way better than my daily experience. So, talking
Yeah.
of like hostage situations and sieges and firearm jobs and all these things, it sounded like, the movies, or like this other world that I was mostly exposed to. So, I put in application, which took probably over 2 years. So there was a big kind of personal transition during that time anyway. Like I kind of decided that wanted to move in a new direction, but then had to remain patient with that transition, and then kind of setting up those steps towards it as well. So yeah, pretty big change. It wasn't necessarily like a deep-seated desire to move in or as a change of career. I was enjoying what I was doing. It was just I guess it just seemed more fun or more exciting, or more valuable use of my training, or I could use a practical application of CrossFit and Jiu-Jitsu and apply it to the real world scenarios.
Yeah, wicked, mate. When I hear you tell that story, like when I hear you talk about like running with the other police officer, when I hear you talking about the Army Reserves, and then obviously you're mentioning like your CrossFit and your fitness there, has fitness and health always been a big thing for you, like even back then?
Not really. I mean, I grew up playing soccer and doing karate and all that kind of stuff, like I guess most people did in the 90s. Turning 17, turning 18, and moved to Melbourne. It was, again, another kind of complete change. I was playing in bands. I was playing guitar in a punk band and everything that came along with that. So late nights, out at pubs and all of that kind of stuff. So, and, we would travel, would play interstate, we would play overseas, we did big festivals, we were recording albums. We were really kind of right into that whole lifestyle, big share houses and, eating 2-minute noodles and sleeping in. And it was, I kind of, I've always loved music, and it fulfilled that aspect, and it kind of started to track down that path. And it was probably, a good 5 or 6 years, maybe even longer, in that space of just, share houses and playing at live music venues. And so it was, I guess, starting to experience personal health problems. I guess living like that started to really impact me. It was low energy, low drive, low interest in anything outside of the fun aspects of things, the loud music and the party aspects. There was it was hard to get out of bed, had to kind of make anything of any value to my life outside of just playing music and being out late. So it would a good 6-7 years maybe, and then it was actually a mutual friend that Lise. She got me to start running. She said, "You need to do something." And so I one morning got up, decided I'd run around the block, didn't make maybe 50 meters, and then tried again the next day, and then realized that if I didn't run as hard as I could, that I could go a bit longer. And then that kind of moved into running a bit more, getting confident with that, then starting boxing, and then training for boxing, and then wanting to improve my strength, improve my coordination, and then improve my cardiovascular fitness and all of that. So that all started to kind of feed into it. And then, wanted to improve. I was always super underweight. So I wanted to improve muscle mass and my capacity to, force development in punching and whatever else. And so I started to focus and started to eat better and started to make some of those changes for myself. And then as all that started kind of fall into place and I started to feel better and mental health improved and sleep improved and then drive and motivation started to improve and relationships and friendships started to improve. And then I started to distance myself from the late nights and everything that went with that. And so then I really experienced the dramatic shift. And so then from there, decided that was a path that I wanted to move into. I studied Cert 3 and 4 for PT, and so this was probably 2010, 2011, maybe. Yes. Then also some other, like I was raised vegetarian, and so there was always, and mum and dad were always super health conscious. So they, it was like organic foods and, making sure the meals contained protein source. And there was this kind of focus on that. So that was always there, but not conscious, especially through, teenage years and then through the early 20s. It was, I guess, a complete rejection of all of that. And then started to attribute some of my health problems to the diet itself. And, another friend, he had chronic fatigue. And so he was seeing a doctor down in Melbourne he was a GP, a psych, right into nutrition and stuff. And so he was working with this doctor who got him on the autoimmune paleo protocol, and he turned it all around. Like he was back to working full time. And I guess my health, as I started to increase, I was running and doing weights and doing boxing and applying for the Army Reserve and studied PT. And I felt my energy was also starting to decline and food intolerances would start to increase and all that kind of thing. And I had read a Chris Masterjohn blog, I guess a long, long time ago before, social media and things like that. And his story basically mirrored mine. And he was saying, raised vegetarian, and as he got older and he started to develop a bit more and more food intolerance, and then he spoke about this paleo thing, and so I started to see the changes in my friend and how they had this dramatic improvement for this so-called manageable, uncurable problem. And then reading more into Chris Masterjohn's work and understanding that he actually knows what he's talking about. It's not some out there crazy dude. It was, definitely rooted in some deep understandings of, biochemistry. So I decided the first thing I did was, I don't know, can't remember why, but I decided to eat meat. And so I bought a bag of lamb hearts and fried them up and ate them whole. So my first meat meal was a bowl of lamb hearts.
Wow, man. I think most vegetarians go for bacon or something like that, but you've gone straight to the organ meat, straight to the good stuff.
Exactly. Yeah, and so that, I guess that was all kind of where it all started to fall into place for me, or some of the pieces started to fall into place for me. And I remember the question, but
mate, the story you've shared there has been spot on. And what I really like about it is just how, like, I didn't know the punk band story for starters, so that was great to hear that part of your life. But also the transition where you say that one day you just got up and went for a run. And it was just like, that's one small act that you took then, and then you repeated it the next day and the next day and started to create a habit. And just through that one small action, it's changed your whole life, or the direction of your whole life, because you got more into training, you got more into nutrition, you got more into health, and it's just snowballed and continued to roll. And we can even see that now with what you're doing, mate. And it probably just started from, that small little step. And it's incredible to sort of see what happened. And even to becoming a PT and all that sort of stuff. You mentioned health problems, and obviously you've touched a bit on your diet and stuff there. Could you share with us like some of the signs or symptoms or some of the things that were going on with you at that time?
I think it was mostly just a general kind of dullness in my outlook, and kind of, I guess, a feeling of disconnect from the world around me. Like it was kind of not disassociating, but a just a feeling of non-connection, and that I couldn't put my finger on it. I couldn't explain it, and people probably couldn't notice it, but it was just a experience of general kind of disinterest in things. Obviously I had my big interest, which was in making music, and I was writing songs and recording and fully active with that. And I was working as a sound engineer as well, fairly active. And then, but nothing super extreme, not like autoimmune or something where you could go, oh, that person's really unwell, or this kind of chronic state. It was just a kind of dull experience, and a lot of things that I didn't recognize at the time until after things started to feel better, which is kind of it's hard to kind of think about eliciting change from an experience of not knowing that I needed that change. So as I started to exercise more, I'd feel more confident in myself. And so, and then I felt like I wanted to support that as much as I could, and you'd find ways to support that. And then I would feel better. And so I'd start to associate and understand that if I did these things, I'll feel better. And it was never a linear path, which I guess for a lot of people, if you look at it from the outside, it probably looks like this kind of transformation. It was really like a roller coaster. You go in one direction and you start to feel the benefits, and you start to integrate some of that, or those habits or those practices. And then, you get injured and you stop going to the gym, and then it's harder and harder to get to the gym. And then you start, going out partying again to feel better, or you start eating convenient food just because you can't be bothered cooking, or you can't be bothered doing something. And so it's like, it was really, the transition themselves, looking back over 10, 20 years, it seems like fairly progressive. Zooming in and like paying closer attention to the specifics, it was more of a roller coaster through those changes, integrating changes, and then having reminders or periods of time that really kind of remind you that it does work. And there is definitely a whole lot of, and obviously that's going to be individual, it's going to be personalized to the individual. It's going to feel different for everyone. But I guess for me, it's like I had to learn the hard way. And it's probably still the case now, but it was, I would, you go off the rails, or what I kind of felt was looking back would be off the rails. And it acted as a confirmation that what I was doing was working, because now I'm back in this place I was before, and then happened to like pick up and through those processes again. Because when you stop training, it gets real hard to start again.
Yeah. I like that analogy, Ben. I like the analogy of the roller coaster up and down. It's not linear, because I think a lot of men in midlife are feeling that as well. And a lot of guys go through that. We try to make changes. We try to work on our health. Things go well for a short period of time. We fall off the bandwagon. We do fail at some stuff. We do make mistakes. And we do go backwards, but it's getting back on that horse, and it's striving, because we know how good that stuff can make us feel. Over time, we're just hoping that the trajectory keeps going in the right direction, even though the roller coaster keeps going up and down. When did health really do you feel health became an important value for you? When did you start to put it a lot higher, do you think?
I think joining the police force, there became more demands on stress, resilience, physical capacities, mental capacities, like learning capacity, like being able to learn new information and implement it really fast was a big part of it. But then also, not just being resilient, but being able to adapt to the daily stress and trauma. So it became well, for me anyway, like I'd had to internalize the process for maybe a survival thing or an approach that it would be more sustainable if I could use it as a way to test those physical elements, test those mental elements, and test those kind of philosophical aspects as well. And so if I would, you know, dive into philosophy and some of those ideas, that if you could apply it and it worked, then to me that was a valuable thing, and I'd take on board and start to, build up these methods to survive in an environment that will just pull you in, every different direction all at once. It could be, you go to a fatal car accident and you're dealing with that kind of thing. And then it could be, you've got a victim that you have to console from something completely different, and maybe like a sexual assault or whatever. You're just pulled emotionally. And so for me, it was, how do I adapt to this kind of unpredictable environment? And the elements which drew me to it was, and it's funny looking back on it, is the unpredictability of it. That's what I wanted. My life had become monotonous and I was seeking unpredictability, but then that's what would start to pull me apart mentally, or would start to, I would start to struggle with training because of night shifts, or I'd start to have a hard time getting to sleep because of some things that I'd witnessed that day, or something that I'd gone through that day. And so you'd end up with, maybe a couple of hours sleep, and then you're back and doing it again.
Wow.
And so for me, it was for me, the training was completely inadequate for that role. And I think there's some philosophical issues through that whole thing, but I won't go into it. So I realized that it was really up to me to, in order for me to survive mentally and emotionally and physically, I had to adopt these practices which would allow me to thrive in that environment. So whether that was, some time of reflection and deep diving into some better understandings of philosophies and practices, and it came into, training. How often can I train? And then I'd only joined, done all the training and all that. And so I was about 18 months or so, 2 years before I got shot. And so I thought that I could just apply, this kind of approach of healing his physical injury. Like, I'd injured my shoulder and I could just do the practices and I could just progress this injury, which for the physical aspect, I healed it really fast. And it was just focusing on making sure I was getting enough collagen, making sure I was getting enough vitamin C and the zinc and all that for the injury to heal up. But it was really like the mental injury that I hadn't paid attention to, which then led on to like deeper gut issues. Obviously, vagus dysregulation, HPA axis dysregulation, all these kind of things that, we can read about, but when it's happening, it's hard to kind of associate or integrate that experience with these understandings. So I was really driven to just get back to doing what I was doing. I was still, only in for a couple of years, and I was super keen to be doing it. So I felt that I had to do everything in order to get myself back in that position, which, looking back, I would definitely do it a bit different. But as the experience progressed, I realized that I had obviously my life flash before my eyes, and, in that moment while bleeding out and pressing my patrol jacket into the side of my head, you go through, there's a lot of different thoughts that you have from, we can go into that whole story if you want, but basically from that experience, I realized that it's my personal responsibility. There's no training that I could do which could prepare me for it. There's no structured program that I could go through that would allow me or give me the insights into what I needed to manage the experience. And so it really became this drive for self-actualization and And with that, it just took to every aspect of my life, this required personal responsibility. I couldn't then kind of offload, or I couldn't, contract out these aspects that this organization will look after me, or which, I got no criticisms as for how they supported me through that. But at the end of the day, it's me in my room at night, with flashbacks. You can have all the best psychs and all the counselors and all welfare services in the world, but at the end of the day, it's me. And then it's my experience of my life that's impacted that. Yeah, the support services are great, and really, I think a lot of times to lean on those availabilities if they are there. But it took more than what was offered. I have to seek out an external psych for EMDR and to do breath work for address it, or my own path for the trauma experiences and things like that. It became, I guess, the fundamental shift was that this is my health's my job. Like there's no government recommendation that I could use which maybe they're great. I don't know. That as long as those aspects become the catalyst, it won't be internalized and aligned with your values. So it becomes really kind of, I guess, disconnected from that state of alignment. Yeah. And not to say that I came fully aligned with these aspects of health. There was definitely still aspects which would play out in a lot of ways that I hadn't kind of paid attention to, or some of those shadow tendencies or whatever would still there and still have its impacts on my decision, which fast forward to where we are now, it now feels fully aligned, and all of that needed to happen as stepping stones to then, chip away into the decisions that then could become shifting into that self-actualization, into that state and that being that I wanted to experience. So the being a police officer gave me that playground to test these theories of, post-traumatic growth and all these like anti-fragility and all these ideas that, sound cool, but if you can really start to learn it and apply it and integrate it, it had to be tested in that space, but then it couldn't really be expressed fully in that container. So it wasn't until that I left that it actually made sense.
It's a powerful reflection, mate, and I appreciate you sharing that story, because I think it's such an important story and a great one for a lot of us to hear. Because what I reflect on what you said was like, the role as a police officer was a challenge to you. It was the randomness of the job, of anything that could pop up. And it sounds like you were trying to put yourself in the best position to be able to deal with that in terms of, your training, in terms of your nutrition, in terms of the physical side of it, the demands of that. But there was still the mental demands of that were really hard to train for, or really hard to prepare yourself for. And I think a lot of men, we struggle with that mental side. We'd like to bury all those emotions and all those things inside us. And I dare say that, the trauma that you must have faced and the experiences you must have faced, probably a lot of that got buried. And to go through an experience of being shot and having your life flash before you like that, that's just incredible, man. And for you to bounce back and to be able to step forward and see it as like a personal journey, an opportunity for you to learn, a growth opportunity, and for you to bounce back and get yourself back into a healthy path and like to keep pushing forward. Because I think sometimes that shocking sort of thing can push us downhill even further. And we go into that sort of, that whirlwind or that whirlpool, and just, life can go backwards. But congratulations to you for, staying positive, mate, staying brave, and being able to get out there and research different ways and find a personalized plan that sort of worked for you. You talk about leaving the police force. Was that the big sort of thing? Like when you started this sort of health journey, this personal health journey, and you started learning more of this stuff, did the police force no longer align with your values and where you wanted to go and your visions, or what was the catalyst for that?
Yeah. So the reason I left was a health decision, personal health decision, which we can go into. But the lead up to that was probably more political. There were some things that I didn't agree with. And before I joined, I was actually getting tattooed, and the tattooist asked me, it's like, well, what are you going to do if you're confronted with a situation that you don't agree with? And I was pretty adamant. It's like, well, I'm joining because I think it's a good thing, and I think that I can, make this positive change in the world and protect the community, and I've got all these, good intentions. But I hadn't thought about like the real world experience, and because I didn't know anyone that was, I didn't have any connections to that other than the running group and stuff like that. But as far as like a personal experience, um, so I said, I was like, well, if I'm confronted with something like that, then I'll leave. And then I obviously got in, and life changes, and it's fairly rapid as far as it's like initiations and you. I mean, I think for a lot of people, it could be super overwhelming and super consuming. But I think I was lucky enough to have a really good group of friends from like the music industry, like they were playing in bands, and so I was really passionate about the role of you protecting everyday people. Like everyday people should be able to go to do their work and look after their families and go about their business without having to pay attention to the other side of society. And then obviously there was a big change with the role with the COVID pandemic. And there were a couple of big changes for me, which changed what it meant to me personally. I enjoyed being able to help and support the people actually doing the groundwork. But a lot of it I didn't enjoy was like you kind of involved more in like the political and the internal workings of it, and it's this kind of soul destroying leverage system of who's got what on who and who's going to get a job because they're aligned with these other people and things like that. And so I was kind of working as a sergeant and didn't necessarily want to go in that direction. I mean, I felt I was good at it, and I was really passionate about advocating for the members. And when things would, turn unstuck, I could really come in and support them in that space. But it kind of, I didn't want to be in that. I didn't want to see that part of the world, the kind of the leveraging and the backbiting and the political kind of elements of it. And so then it was like, well, what do I do? I go back to patrolling. What other role would interest me? And I kind of came narrower and narrower. And what I ultimately wanted was special operations group, and that was rejected and deemed not possible. So that also contributed. So it wasn't really like this simple black and white decision. Everything kind of felt like it was kind of reaching this point. And I got into some heated discussions with people at the station about the politics of it, and people seem to really enjoy the extra power that they were given and stuff like that. So I was starting to feel separate, and there was a whole bunch of cops that felt the same as me. They're all normal people, so it was like a whole range, but the general kind of space was all like, whatever we need to do to survive this thing. So yeah, with that, I was kind of philosophically, politically malaligned with the organization, because I felt my role was to keep society safe, as a kind of libertarian role, right? Like you protect the good people to have their lives as free as possible, and we take the bad people away and stop them from doing bad things to good people. And then I was made in close contact with someone at the station who may or may not have tested positive, so I had to stay at home for 2 weeks. And while I was staying at home for 2 weeks, they declared the date in which you had to be vaccinated.
Mm.
And so then the date came round and I was isolating anyway, because I was told I couldn't leave my house because you may or may not have been in contact with this person, may or may not have had tested positive. And anyway, they called, no one really knew what was going on. And they asked, hey, have you got it? I was like, no, I'm at home. I'm isolating. I can't leave. And yeah, the army come around and make sure that you're still at home and all that kind of stuff. And then they said, are you going to get it? And I was like, no, I'm not. They're like, oh, you could get fired? I was like, yeah, okay. And I've never been anti-vaccine. I've had travel shots. I've had them for the Army Reserve. I had them to get into the police force. I would go through those processes, with the kind of acceptance that these systems are set up for the benefit of people. But the alignment wasn't there anyway. So it's like, for me personally, I didn't feel as necessary to get it. I just worked for 2 years on the street, never had it, didn't need it before. I'm definitely, if it's dangerous and it's as bad as what they say, I probably would have had it, which means I would have developed the antibodies to, for any further or subsequent infections. So again, just common sense says to me, it's not that much of a risk to me. I'm, I have a fairly high VO2 max and pretty good strength capacity. I know my immune system's fairly well adapted. I've been working night shifts and all this. I pay attention to my diet, supplements. I'm using sauna, ice baths. I'm using float tanks. I'm on top of this. This is not something that concerns me. So there, when pushed into a corner to make that decision, it was an easy one. Because what am I preserving? This role that I don't believe in for a future that I've kind of been removed from an experience that I had from the job, and they're expecting me to do things that I don't believe in, and so it really just, all of that kind of came to a point, and so I was like, no, I'm not doing it, and there's nothing that they could have done which would have swayed me. So it didn't matter if they'd said, any other the possible things that they could have inflicted, and if they will do it, I'm not.
Yeah. It was a rock and a hard place, mate. And it sounds like, that was it. It was time for you. That was the time for you to get out. Did you know what was coming after that? Like when you decided, like, I'm out of the police force, like what was next?
Maybe October 10, 11 or 12 or so, when I was suspended. And then it was December 3rd that we had a tribunal, and charges were heard and my defense was made, and we were given an option to sign basically on bail that you would, that you could take, well, there was Novavax or something they were working on, which was apparently a protein-based or vector-based vaccine or whatever. So they're like, if you sign on that, you can stay on suspension until that's available, but then you have to agree to get it when it's made. And I was like, okay, so if you can give me the long-term safety data of that one, then, then we can discuss it. And because how do I sign on to agree that I'm going to take something that we don't even know has been made or how it's going to be impactful on people's lives? And again, it didn't make sense to me. It was just like, what are we talking about? Like, how is this like a discussion with a prosecutor about whether I'll take this thing? It hasn't been tested, and I got a sign to say I'll definitely do it so that I can keep my job for another few months or whatever. Yeah, so it was December 3rd, 2021. And they go, well, you haven't given us any options. We have to fly you. I was like, okay, do it. And like, and then we had no idea. So, Nikki, my partner, was working in a bunch of gyms in Melbourne as a coach. Because of all the lockdowns, most of those went under. And then, so we were both without work. Since we loaded up, and we came up to visit Dad, and then we're just like, oh, it's pretty nice here, good weather. We actually get some sunshine from 20 years in Melbourne. And so, yeah, we didn't really have any plans. So we were just like, okay, cool. We'll hang out here for a bit. Then we, picked out like an area of the property, and we got a converted site cabin and a converted caravan and made our own bathroom and compost toilet and gas shower, and got a couple of shipping containers and squat racks and strongman equipment, and then started running classes, and we started getting, people coming along, and then we're doing one-on-one PTs, and it's like, oh, all kind of working. Let's, hang out, set up here, and we got chickens and goats, and, I've never been on property. Had no idea. Luckily, Nikki had some, childhood experience with them. So yeah, it's just been like a drastic learning curve for understanding goat nutrition and signs of anemia and all these other things that you don't think about before you kind of dive into something.
What a change, mate! What a life change! Like, how do you feel now? The fact that you've done that and you've got out of Melbourne, you've escaped, what was sort of going on there, but you've just built a whole new life for yourself that seems to be far more aligned with the person you want to be. Like, how does that make you feel?
I mean, it's like, I guess, feels so gradual that you don't really reflect on the changes. Like each step was kind of like just rolled on to the next, and like with not knowing what you don't know is like a really big part. Like, we got to build a fence, and it's like, well, how do you build a fence? Or you build the fence and then it's not very tight, and like, how do you tighten the fence? And you've got to YouTube everything, and then you go to break the fence down, and then you got to YouTube how to fix it, or all these other things that so I guess the problem still exists, and so Melbourne feels like a lifetime ago. Like, I feel like it wasn't the same person doing that thing. But there has been like really dramatic moments where I think it was about 18 months after leaving. So we're looking 2023 that I was like, I actually feel like I'm relaxed for the first time in 12 years. And it was like, oh, this is what down regulating feels like. And I felt, I was doing all the things to offset the stress. I was like float tanking every week. I was meditating. I was, doing saunas. I was doing all these things which were offsetting the damage done of shift work and trauma and stress and internal politics stress and environmental stress. And so it's feels like worlds apart. Like that, I can't even identify as
Mm.
me as that in that role. Um, it's like people, ask me all the time, oh, look, they're accepting people back who are unvaccinated. Would you do it? Like, what for? Like, I've made that dramatic transition. I've come through it and I've integrated the change, and I'm, I've moved into, no, I've moved into more of a state of alignment. Like, what matters most to me? Like, I wake up, I'm in nature, like we're surrounded by trees, like we're on a creek, we've got animals, there's wildlife, we're in the middle of, I think, 28,000 hectares of national park.
Mm.
We're 5 minutes from the beach. We got sunny days most of the time. Um, and we're able to really, like we can decide how we spend our days because we don't have massive overheads. Obviously we still, spend a good portion on regenerative grass-fed biodynamic meats and um, organic and biodynamic vegetables and spray-free local, all that kind of stuff. So we've we've still got enough money to pay for all the things that we want, but we're not we don't have massive overheads because everything runs off a gas bottle, everything runs off solar. We catch all the water that we use from the rain, or we cart it in buckets from the mountain.
Mm.
So we've just really worked hard at keeping the overheads down.
Yeah.
And so our time becomes more hours. We can, there's obviously enough work for us at the gyms and enough work for us online, and we can, sell some milk and some cheese and some eggs and um, all that kind of stuff. And most of our days we're training ourselves, or we're training um, PTs, or we're down at the beach, or we're walking the dogs, or walking the goats around it. Um,
It's a different life, mate, and it's impressive to hear. It just sounds like everything's going a lot better for you now, and it's just down regulated your nervous system and allowed you to be in alignment with the visions and values and stuff that you have, which is impressive, mate. You've also gone on to now do health coaching and say now working with other coaches, all that sort of stuff. How's all that going for you?
yeah, good. I I guess getting back into PT was a bit of a shift and a bit of like, what are we, like 3-4 years in now, and there's a bit of like imposter syndrome all kind of came back, and like but then that all kind of shifted pretty fast because like even as a cop I was right into it. I was working with Dave O'Brien in a Fifth Element, so I had my own scope of what that looked like from a client's perspective. And obviously I was facilitating the ice bath and the breath work and stuff, and still I was doing programming and stuff for people on the side. So I still had my fingers in the pie.
Mm.
So it all kind of really spiraled back in, and then I've just been studying and getting mentored with all like blood chemistry analysis and all of the kind of the health coaching aspect, which I just naturally gravitated towards more and more. It wasn't like consciously deciding, oh, I'm gonna do more of this. It just kind of kept going. Nikki would have a client say, this is happening for her, or this is happening for her. It's like, oh yeah, you could shift this, change your diet like this. You can, add in some of these supplements, or if you can got some bloods, blah, 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 I can have a look at them. And so it just kind of like organically worked, where Nikki started just taking all of the PT clients, and I would just start doing all the health coaching aspects. Like, people were, real lucky they could come here this shipping container in the middle of nowhere in this paddock, and we're, like super dedicated to like our own learning and our own progression, like constantly. So yeah, say with Nikki still traveling and doing seminars and still training and getting mentored with all the movement stuff and all the lymphatic work. And so we're really committed to just like in it's not like, oh, we better do this for the business, we better do that. It needs to be this way, or we need to have this thing on Instagram, or we need this to go viral or whatever. It's just been, well, what do we want to do? This is it. We're doing it. And then people kind of come through, and people that are aligned with think it really makes a huge difference to them, because it's entirely authentic. None of there's no charade or anything. Like, it's like, this is what we're right into. We live all of this.
Yeah.
We're doing protocols in our own blood work and our own DNA testing, our own stool testing ourselves. We're doing, our own nutrition plans, and we're doing our own training programs, and Nikki's doing my rehab program at the moment. So and then we sell, raw milk. Oh, but not, maybe that's illegal. I think they use it for a bath. So we're selling milk and eggs, and people come to our gym. So it's like we're kind of just created our own personal alignment, and then we just offer that to people that it aligns with. And it's not like we're not super busy with endless clients. It's a small demographic, but we've got no competition in what we do on the whole coast. Like, it's
beautiful, man. I can hear it in your voice, and I can see the energy that it brings you. Like, it's awesome to see you're so passionate about it. And it's not something that's new. Like, I can see from your past job, you've always been a carer, mate. You care about people. You want to help people. Through the police force, you had that belief system of being able to serve and help people, protect people. And now in the role as a health coach and the coaching and stuff that you do, and it's the same thing, mate, but you've just found a way that aligns with you more to deliver that service, which is really impressive, mate, because I think a lot of us struggle to sort of wrestle with our values, wrestle with our beliefs, and find something that sort of fits and feels comfortable. But it sounds like you've managed to turn that around from a very difficult, challenging role in the police force to where you are now, and doing it in a sustainable way and having a really great impact on the lives that you touch, not by just telling people, but actually showing people what you do. It's impressive, Matt.
Well, thank you. It's kind of, I guess, glossing over it or looking back over, as I said, these decades. It seems linear, like it just seems this, but it's each step, I feel, has just been learned the hard way, right? Like, it's not that, these alignments that I developed this sense of purpose and I did it through some course or whatever. It's just like that, the hammering process, or that they kind of try this thing, or that doesn't work, or that doesn't work. And then, slowly learn that this thing doesn't work, and then look for what does work. And it's just been like, I guess, right through, if I was to look back right through, each kind of step has been that same kind of method, but it's allowed for that continue, or like, I guess, ultimately, if you to zoom right out, ultimately there is this kind of intentional trajectory. It's just that when you live in it, it just seems far more chaotic, and there's micro shifts throughout each of those steps.
It's not this linear path, mate, or the way I see it. Sometimes I talk to my clients about it. It's having permission to experiment. And like you say, it's not about, I'm always going to be striving for success or for perfection. I'm going to try this. There's multiple paths to the destination we want to get to. But what's the right path for you as an individual? What's going to work for you? You might hear something that someone says, hey, I lost weight on this diet, and you try that diet and it's the worst possible thing for you. It doesn't work for you. but you explored that and you gave yourself permission to explore that, and you learnt from that mistake, and you learnt that that didn't work for you. You take a step back and you try a different path, but you're always willing to experiment. You're willing to explore and just learn from each opportunity and continue to grow or continue to step forward. And it's a powerful message, and it's obviously something that, you've managed to make work for you, through that incredible journey that you've had there, Ben.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that sums it up real nicely. Like it I think, I guess just what I'm trying to say is that it always seems like this kind of clear thing from the outside. We see other people do these things and it's like, oh, it's so easy for them. Like they're just doing that thing that they love. And it's like, well, it's not. It's like this kind of relentless beating, and then, the beating stop and you've kind of managed to make some sense of it. Um, so I guess for people to kind of join those two dots, like the felt experience doesn't look like the presented experience, and especially things like social media kind of magnify that disparity. Is like the felt experience feels like chaos, but you watch anyone else or you look at anyone else's life and you're like, oh yeah, it's weird, they got it together. Of
Yeah.
course they've made these decisions, of course they've made those progressions, and they've had their successes, or they've pushed in that direction. So yeah, I think
It's a
the
good story, mate. It is. And like you say, I think a lot of us have those challenges and we don't necessarily talk about those challenges. We bury those challenges and we don't bring them to the spotlight. We're all about, the Instagram photo, that Instagram shot, or the most memorable moment, or the positive story. And that's what I like about you, mate. You're just raw. And like, I think the first time that we met, you were open to be able to talk about, some of the struggles you'd been through, some of your health stuff, obviously being shot, like just incredible stuff, mate. And I think it's having that vulnerability sometimes and being able to admit that we're not perfect can really resonate with a lot of people. And I think your story is very powerful, man. So keep sharing that story and keep doing the work you do. We need more people like you in the world, man. And it's awesome to see what both you and Nikki are up to up there. It's wicked. I can't wait to come and visit you one day and check it all out. If people want to find out more about what you do, Ben, whereabouts can they get in touch? Whereabouts can they find out?
Outlier Health Instagram. The website's still down. I'm still piecing that together.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if you're floating through Yarra Happany per chance, you can come train at Outlaw Strength, Paddock Shipping Container Gym. Fully sustainable, eco-friendly, all the good things. And it's kind of like, what are they, goat yoga, but we'll just do some squats or
Yeah.
some handstands.
Beautiful stuff, mate. So is the plan in the future to do more health coaching online, or what's the goal? Where are you heading with the business, mate? Or is it mainly just to support your local community? What's happening there?
I don't really no, I enjoy the online aspect, but I find it's real kind of stunted in the depth that you can really work with someone. I mean, I got a whole bunch of online clients, and we communicate by email, and we can do phone calls for results, or like whatever else, and we can go through like an email and protocols or whatever, and we chat about it. But it feels like a bit disconnected. So I guess they're being so far removed from the cities and everything else, there is kind of an element of maintaining that. And I enjoy it. Like I enjoy, like online engagement and sharing information and all that kind of stuff. And being able to, work with someone in America, or being able to work with someone around Australia, it's, it's almost mind blowing that we can interact on these levels. And like, I really appreciate that opportunity, but I think as much as I can, and where I'm going to be driving all of my attention will be working with local communities and seeing how far I can extend that out along the coast, to engaging with local gyms and different community groups and things like that, and seeing if we can set up programs for even different communities that wouldn't generally have access to, especially like the functional approach to things, that it seems to be marketed and towards the elusive aspects of the communities that health for the wealth, which is fine. And I think it's necessary. We've got to make money. We've got to live and buy our regenerative grass-fed meats and whatever else.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think, for me personally, I think it needs to be made a little more accessible. It's just looking at ways to be able to implement that to be effective and so it is affordable for, again, different aspects of the community. That's, I think, where all my efforts will go over the next couple of years.
Yeah, awesome. Sounds great, Ben. I look forward to seeing the business grow, and I look forward to maybe connecting with you in the future and doing this again sometime. I really appreciate you jumping on the podcast and sharing your powerful story, mate. Is there a message that you would want to leave at the end of this after telling that story to our listeners and knowing that, like, a lot of men in midlife out there are going through maybe similar sort of struggles, maybe not quite to the same level as yourself, but is there any advice or any last words of wisdom you'd like to leave, mate?
One thing, it's hard for us to share our struggle, especially as men, and to just to talk about it, because I think there are subtle pressures and there are internal pressures of us presenting and being a certain way, and those expectations and us trying to present those things. But I don't think that the big struggles that we can talk about, like these dramatic stories that could be in the movies or whatever, I don't think that that's what really grinds us down. It's the everyday. It's the small things that become really hard. Well, not really hard, but it's those aspects of our experience that aren't necessarily dramatic. And for me personally, being shot is this great story, and it probably overshadows every other story that I could tell. I mean, I'd have hundreds of them, but as far as the most dramatic story, except that kind of fed in to more support, more interest, more effort and attention on my part, and more what I feel was opposition to my everyday experience, so that I could try harder. And it gave me permission to try harder, and gave me permission. It really took away this kind of expectation, because I could do and say whatever, and now I've got an excuse because I went through this terrible thing, and people would allow it because bad thing happened. But if I don't have something like that, I'm just having a hard time doing everyday things. I'm having a hard time getting up in the morning to do the job that I don't really like, or I'm having a hard time making it to the gym because I'm already tired, or my relationships are dragging me down, or it's hard having kids that are, maybe you're finding it, you're struggling. And it's that I feel that there's no permissions for that. Everyone experiences them, but no one grants any permission ultimately to that experience. And so I think that's what really has a detrimental effect on our capacity to create this life, or that we can rise through, that we can generate that momentum or that intention. We can apply it to something worthwhile. And it's without that. Being shot, I was like, I want to be back on the road. And I was back working within 4 weeks, right? I was back at the gym in 2 weeks, back at policing in 4 weeks. And I wouldn't recommend that. And if I would go back, I would definitely change my approach to healing. But the point is, I had this thing to nurture, and I had this thing to train that I could edge all of my efforts against to make that change. And without that, we're just grinding. We're just rolling like a freewheel, just spinning and not gaining traction. And because we don't want to put that effort in, because maybe there's no demand, or maybe there's no opposition, there's no real opposition, so we seek it out in other ways so we can stay where we are. I guess what I'm trying to say is that I don't believe that it's the big events that really break us. It's the everyday things. It's that life that where we're out of alignment. It's what is it, Muhammad Ali quote? It's not running up the hill, it's the stone in the shoe. It's these little things. They just grind at us, and maybe they break down our confidence, or they break down our energy, or our relationships become subtracting to our capacity to express ourselves, or they're closed in and we can't communicate, or we can't have those needs met, or whatever it is. It's those things, I feel, that become real hard. It's those big dramatic events. Yeah, they impact us, but they give us something to create something of greater opposition to. And without that opposition, what are we doing? We're just fucking drifting or floating, and we don't have that opportunity to show our capacity to the world.
Yeah. I think I hear what you're saying. It's like, we can get captivated by some of these big acute events that happen in our lifestyle, and how we choose to respond to those events, whether we allow those events to be a growth event, which makes us want to push harder or develop further or take more control of our lives, or if we allow those acute events to have a big impact on us that allows us to spiral down. It can be challenging, but at the same time, like you say, the everyday grind, the responsibilities that we have, career, financial, relationships, our own health, all these things, they're chronic, like they're every day. It's being able to see that and being able to also take those events and take the positive out of that and be able to take charge to move forward and not let them spiral us down in the same sense. Because I think you've said it as well, mate. You chose your personal path. You figured out what you needed to do that was going to work for you, and you made mistakes along the way. There was trial and error. There's the roller coaster going up and down. There's a lot happening, and you're still figuring it out, I'm sure. There's still lots of challenges going on. But, you keep moving forward, mate, and you keep following your purpose and your passion, and you're finding your way. Got a great relationship with Nikki. You've got a beautiful, place where you live in now. You're serving the community and feeling that that's where you're connected. So many positive things sort of going on, and it's because you've been able to take that positive and turn that energy around and just find that focal point. And full respect to you, man. It's a powerful story, whether you include the shooting or not. And full respect to you, mate. Well done.
Cool. Thanks, Dred. Thanks for your time. Good to see you again.
Thanks for tuning in to this powerful episode of the Midlife Maverick podcast. Ben's story is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the transformative power of aligning your life with your values. From surviving a traumatic, life-changing event to building a life centered on health, community, and purpose, Ben's journey reminds us all of the importance of taking personal responsibility for our well-being and staying committed even when the path is uncertain. For all the men out there listening, this is your call to action. Your health is your foundation. It's time to invest in it. Whether it's taking small steps to improve your nutrition, prioritizing your mental health, or building sustainable fitness habits, your future self will thank you. If you're ready to reclaim your edge and take control of your health, we've got you covered. Head over to the Midlife Mavericks website where you'll find resources to help you get started. Reclaim Your Edge, our free program designed to give you practical tools and strategies to kickstart your journey to better health. Top Gun Academy, a comprehensive 3-month coaching program that provides personalized training, group support, and lifetime access to tools and resources to transform your health and your life. Don't wait. This is your chance to move beyond the grind, reconnect with your purpose, and live a vibrant, fulfilling life that you deserve. Check it all out at Midlife Mavericks. Thanks again for joining us, and as always, stay strong, stay focused, and keep pushing towards your best self. See you next time.